Hi, welcome to the Shelley Studio, and today I am working on my Mission Inspiration project for February. So the first prompt was to cover the page with tissue, so I decided I would use a piece of Tim Holtz tissue and just cover the entire page with it. I'm using my little catalyst tool to try and get it all smooth. I just plunked it on, probably. I'm sure there's a better technique to that. Alright, so now I'm protecting it because the next prompt is to add a thin coat or spritz of color. So I added yellow. This is the FW inks, and I just put it in a spray bottle and sprayed a little bit. Okay, the next one. This is going so fast, but it's such a long process. I had to speed it up. So this one was add tinted texture paste through a stencil, and when I was buying clearance stuff at Hobby Lobby, I found a couple of, they're called Glossy Dimension by Bria Reese. They had a few of those. It says modeling paste, and it's pre-colored, and this one was magenta. And it's very messy stuff. It's not as stiff as texture paste. It's a lot creamier. And my colors on his prompts was brown, red, and orange. So I'm doing kind of a yellowish, magenta-ish, and brownish colors. My goal this year is to use everything up. So yeah, that was my last trip. I'm like, I just couldn't pass up the FW acrylic inks. That was just too tempting. Oh no, the dog just howled. I don't know if you heard that. But the prompt coming up was to add twine, and I just didn't know how I was going to do that, so I added some more tissue. Oh my goodness. Dogs are crazy. I'll be back. Okay, so I'm adding this tissue to this. It's cardstock, and then tinting it a little bit brown. I thought it would be more translucent, but it wasn't, so I had to add brown to it. I'm just giving something for the twine to go around because I really didn't know what I wanted to do with it. So I was checking that color out because you really can't tell. I think that one was supposed to be sepia. Anyway, so we're just gonna tint this a little bit. Try to smooth it out, make it a little more even. There we go. So I do let that dry, and then just wind it around, because, you know, have to add all the elements, even though this page is going to look a little discombobulated. It'll be like those layer clusters everybody's doing these days. Alright, so we're going to stick that on. I'm not worried about the edges being up. I want it to look a little dimensional. Yeah, I weighed it down because it wasn't like connecting to places, so I weighed it down with my dictionary for just a little while till it got real tacky. Now I'm going to put that extra bit on that side. Okay, so the next one was to create, well, I'm doing them semi out of order. So the next prompt is to add a steampunk style focal image. So I'm going to create one. I currently don't have a printer. Hope to change that soon. So I couldn't print a steampunk image. I've got to make something. And I really like those objects made out of all the gears, and I have a stash of gears, so we are going to I put this on some watercolor paper, 140 pound, so that it's a little stiff, and hopefully it will hold up to the gears and everything. And I use Mono Aqua Tombow. Anyways, I used this one because it had a nice tip. Sorry about my head in there. And I think I shortened this just a little bit so you don't have to watch me gluing every piece on. So I thought the round sort of went with the butterfly idea, and tried to take those gears right to the edge in some places. My hope is, or was at the time, to try and make it so that the paper doesn't look like it's there. But then I don't end up putting enough gears on there to cover the entire thing. And I also decided I wanted it all kind of cohesive, and yeah, it's not quite dry. I wanted to hurry, so I actually put a couple layers of gesso on there to make sure it was good and white and covered and even. And hopefully it'll help stick some of those elements down. So once that's on there and dry, now I'm going over, sorry about my head again, going over it with a layer of black gesso. I kind of like the gesso for this because it has a bit of a grit to it. Just for what I do with it later. And I have this jar, so this is a point of, if you don't use it, you will lose it. So I have this jar of Pharaoh Gold. It was really gritty anyway. It was like, I don't even know how to describe it. But I went to use it, and you don't really see me use it. You'll see a little bit of gold on the butterfly at one point, but it was so hard I could hardly get anything out of it, and I'd hardly used it at all. It was almost full. I even stuck a knife down in there to see if maybe underneath the top layer was a little bit softer, but it wasn't, so it went in the garbage. So use your products. If you don't use them, they will go bad, they will go hard. So yeah, that should be a warning to me to stop hoarding my art supplies. Use them up. Another reason not to go shopping again this year. Unless I find a super, super, super good deal like those acrylic inks were. Sorry about that. And this is just brown craft paint. Just trying to make it look a little bit like metal. I'm dry brushing as well as you can dry brush with very runny craft paint. Some of my craft paint's pretty old too. That's my next goal. Use up all my craft paint. Alright, so coming up right here. Yeah, see, that was it. 2 seconds. Now this one is also, see, clearance, Inca Gold, and I think this was, I can't remember the name of this color. It's like antique gold or something. I thought it would have more of a gold look to it, but it really is kind of silvery looking. And I probably get too carried away, but I decide I want to lighten the edges all the way around. So I just take extra of that and just go all the way around. That stuff is so much fun to play with. Alright, so there is our focal image. And that was another prompt that said add metallic elements. So, you know, lots of metallic elements there. Okay, so now we're gonna put that on, decide where we want it. And yes, that watercolor card was an actual watercolor. That one might actually be on YouTube, that video. I don't know if I filmed it or not. It would have been quite a while ago. Alright, got that glued on there, and I did put a couple other elements down at the bottom. Sorry you can't see it. And then I had a little watch face I put in there. And then the next was to add a quote or title or phrase. So I do add a quote, and it does take me a little while to write it all out. So I am going to speed. Well, I'm already at speed. I'm just going to skip to the end of this section. So the quote is by Abraham Lincoln, and it's the best way to predict your future is to create it. So I thought that went well with creating things. So here's a couple of close-ups. Well, I hope you made it all the way through. I hope you liked that video. If you did like it, please hit like, feel free to share, comment, and if you'd like to see more from me, please subscribe. Thanks for watching.